Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
It is the assessment of the United States government
To report
that the Islamic Republic of Iran is responsible for the attacks that occurred in the Gulf of Oman. This is only the latest in a series of attacks instigated by
North Vietnam
the Islamic Republic of Iran.
against the United States of America.
Today I've instructed our UN Ambassador Jonathan Cohen to raise
This matter immediately and urgently.
in the UN Security Council meeting. Iran should meet diplomacy with diplomacy, not with
Terror against
peace and security.
our response for the present.
It remains an economic and diplomatic effort to bring Iran back to the negotiating table at the right time.
In the larger sense, this new act of aggression,
Present a clear threat to international peace and security. The United States will defend its forces, interests, and stand with our partners and allies to safeguard global commerce and regional stability.
We still seek no wider war.
We call upon all nations threatened by Iran's provocative acts to join us in that endeavor.
That firmness will always be measured. Its mission is
International peace and security.
You know, it's funny until it becomes tragic, right? So this is where we are now. Today is Donald Trump's birthday, and he celebrated it by going on Fox and Friends for an hour and ranting and raving and trashing everybody, and denying that he said what he said yesterday, and saying that he knows it's Iran that, attacked those tankers, no matter what, because he's looking at grainy video that actually shows Iran responding to calls from the Dutch ship, the crew of the Dutch ship that said, hey, we think we see one of these limpet mines attached to our hull. Could somebody get out here and take it off? Right? You also have the Japanese saying that it wasn't a limpet mine that blew up their tanker, right? That it was some sort of a flying object. You know, it was bullets, something that came from above. And Trump, of course, saying the proof is in the fact that the Iranians came and that they took a mine or some piece of metal off the hull of the ship. They were taking it off, not putting it on, and Trump thinks that that's evidence that they put it on, that they took it off. You know, go figure. I mean, so now we're locked in this war of words over a tanker attack near the Strait of Hormuz between the President of the United States and the freaking Ayatollah Khomeini. So it's not a question of who you're going to believe. It's a question of who are you going to believe less, because the United States has forked over its credibility. Nobody believes a word Donald Trump says. And even prior to Donald Trump, no one believed a word that Bush said after Bush said that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. The entire global community is very wary of any claims of any damn thing in any other country in the Middle East at all, ever, because we squandered it with Colin Powell's reputation being sacrificed and George Tenet sitting behind him while he presented a little vial of anthrax to us and said, this is a weapon of mass. You know what I mean? And so now we're sort of screwed in the global community, and we have to decide for ourselves whether or not we think or whether or not we know who to believe less. Our president or Mike Pompeo. Well, you know, it was his birthday today, and so he decided he would celebrate it by calling into Fox and Friends. And, he said, well, look at the Iran video. So I thought I would show it to you. Central Command has released a grainy video. This is the grainy video. You can see it if you're watching any sort of a video feed. If you can't, and if you're not watching a video feed and you're only hearing audio, there is nothing to hear on this tape. What you are looking at, if you can see it, is a black and white. I mean, we're into like 150 G TVs, right? And it's like, you could get, I think you can get like a 50-inch screen, HD or LED TV for about $1. For about $1. Go check Best Buy. You can get like a 60-inch LED for like, 50 cents. Free delivery and a coupon. They'll pay you to take it off their hands. But we're watching black and white grainy video footage of an Iranian fast boat over there responding to the call from the crew of this Dutch ship. The Netherlands actually said that their crew was there and was watching the Iranians remove this object from the hull of their ship. You can see. And Trump is looking at this grainy black and white video. I mean, saying that the removal of some object from the hull of a Dutch ship is evidence that they put this on it, that the Iranians put it on there. Okay. I mean, you want to go into Trump world, then we'll go into Trump world and see if you can figure it out, because I don't understand. I give up. I really.
Well, Iran did do it, and they did it because you saw the boat. I guess one of the mines didn't explode, and it's probably got essentially Iran written all over it. And you saw the boat at night trying to take the mine off and successfully took the mine off the boat.
Yep.
And that was exposed, and that was their boat, that was them, and they didn't want the evidence left behind. I guess they don't know that we have things that we can detect in the dark that work very well. So we have that, and I know you put it on. So, no, it was them that did it. And
it was them that done it.
President
So what are we
Obama
going to do
made a
about
deal.
it?
President Obama made a deal that was an outrage.
What happened? Oh. It's okay. Yeah, I'm watching the chat room because we're getting hit with sex bots, apparently, according to the people in the chat room. So I'm looking for the sex bots. First of all, I want to see what they sell. I want to see what their sites look like. Why not? It's Friday. And also, I want to block them from the chat room because people in the chat room aren't as interested in sex bots as I am. So anyways, there's a little delay. So that's why. That's why, Scott. You see what I mean? Yeah. I don't worry. I didn't stroke out yet. They're all waiting for me to stroke out from this overload of bull. The overload of. Speaking of bull, Sarah Sanders is leaving. Bye-bye. You know what? I'll believe Sarah Sanders is leaving when I see it, because she lies so much that I don't even know if I should believe that she's really leaving. And check this out. Here's a challenge, okay? Let's say. This would be so freaking awesome. All right, so she'll say she's leaving, then she won't leave. She'll stay. But she'll tell the Trumpanzees, she'll tell the Cult 45, she'll tell them, the Kool-Aid drink, the snowflakes, she'll tell them that she left and that she's not even there, even though she's there, to see if they will go that far with him. Because I bet they will. Wouldn't that be fun? I mean, she says she's leaving. Like I said, I believe that as much as I believe any of her other lies. So we'll have to wait. The proof is in the pudding. I have to say, Brett is in mourning. He is just beside himself with great. Look at that. Sarah's leaving. If you want to torment Brett, all you have to do is go, "Hey, Brett, Sarah's leaving. You're never going to see her dresses again. You'll never see the bad schoolgirl outfit, the black and white. You'll never see it again." Aunt Lydia is leaving. Okay, bye-bye. We'll see. So anyway, I digress. So we're talking war and peace here, okay, is what we're talking about. And apparently even Sarah can't sell this war to the American people. I don't know what's going on. Either that or she's going to run for governor of Arkansas, which, Arkansas deserves it. They do. They deserve it. But they have wanted this war with Iran since the beginning. And by they, I mean the neocons, okay? The Boltons of the world. Remember when he first picked Bolton, right? Everybody was like freaked out because Bolton's a neocon. So here's what we got here. We got the neocons conning the con man himself into a war with Iran that no one will win. It's just like, this is what I said about Iraq, too, and Afghanistan. No one wins these wars. No one wins these wars. You know why? Because there's no reason, there's no righteous reason to start these wars. Therefore, there's no goal. There's no winning. There's no nothing. You don't win a war with Iraq, and you don't win a war with Iran, and you don't win a war in Afghanistan. And yet the neocons are trying to con the con man, and the con man seems to be falling for it because he's stupid. He is dumb. Now, we just got to hope he's lazy, too.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I think regime change in Iran is feasible.
This is simply not susceptible to diplomatic resolution. What we need is an overthrow of the regime in Tehran sooner rather than later.
And unless we're prepared to say we want regime change in Iran, the Middle East is going to remain troubled. And I think that's actually the preferred result in Iran is regime change.
For over 10 years since coming to these events, that the declared policy of the United States of America should be the overthrow of the mullah's regime in Tehran.
And there you have it, the neocon, John Bolton himself. And they're doing a really nice job, Pompeo is too, conning the con man into, hey, you know how much power you have when you're a wartime president? You think defying subpoenas is fun. You think thwarting congressional oversight is fun. Wait till you find out how much power you get if you're a wartime president. Why? You could declare martial law. You could do anything you want. I mean, there is absolutely no way they can hold you accountable for anything you're doing anyway. But if you really want to take all the power, be a wartime president. And I swear to God, on his birthday, he seems to be celebrating that as the gift that will keep on giving. I mean, it was just, I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if you heard about it. But this man was off the hook this morning. He was on Fox News for almost an hour on a phone call, just ranting. And was he talking about anything meaningful? Was he talking about healthcare reform? Was he talking about the problem with immigration? Oh, you know what's going on with immigration? Okay, so there's a couple of things that are going on that are just so unbelievably bad. And it's all because of this president's zero tolerance policy. It's all because of this separation of families. It's all because this man is absolutely unable to figure his way out of a paper bag, let alone be a commander-in-chief in a war situation. Oh, my God. Okay, so what we got here is last week I showed you that they had done inspections of these detention centers, and they were so freaking filthy. I mean, disgusting, right? And I told you, people are standing on top of toilets for breathing air, for space to breathe. What could go wrong? I called it a petri dish, right? It's like a human, grotesque petri dish of everything you could possibly imagine, from salmonella to communicable diseases.
Open packages of raw chicken, foul-smelling meats, molded bread. First on CNN, a new report unmasks the disturbing conditions inside multiple ICE detention facilities. The DHS Inspector General calls these egregious violations. That's a quote. Our Justice correspondent Jessica Schneider has been reviewing the IG's report. What more are you learning?
Well, Poppy, the Inspector General's report really puts it bluntly. It says that at 4 ICE detention facilities, at 2 in particular, in fact, they found immediate risks and egregious violations when they did these surprise inspections at the end of last year. Now, this investigation was prompted by calls to the Inspector General's hotline and concerns of immigrant rights groups. And the IG stressed in this report out today that these are not prisoners and their detention is not supposed to be punitive.
So that was the original report from last week, which was an IG's report from last year, okay? And it found 4 detention centers with unbelievably unhealthy fecal matter, all that. Okay, so now we find out that there are so many people there's like 52,000 people in our custody, okay? And it's not supposed to be punitive. They're not supposed to be held in prisons or jail cells, okay? This is supposed to be temporary detention while your asylum claim is entered, not adjudicated, just entered. And then, if you had a brain, you would, put some sort of an ankle bracelet or something on somebody, and you would let them go to a sponsor in this country, like a family member or some family that is willing to sponsor somebody while their asylum claim is being adjudicated, right? Or you would send more judges. Oh, there's an idea. Oh, and I said idea. Oh, damn it. They never have any. So you'd send more judges down to the border to speed up the process of adjudicating these asylum claims because, we all know that most of the asylum claims will be rejected in the end. So there are some ideas. Well, instead, they've decided to incarcerate these people, and now they have no more room. People were already standing on toilets last year. People were already slammed into places that were, suitable for like 15 people. There's 80 people in this particular cell. Or it's suitable for 75 people, and you got 1,000 people in this, cage. Turns out now, a government professor at the University of New Mexico State, decided that his name is Neil Rosendorf, and he read this government report exposing these conditions. And so he decided that he would go to Paso del Norte, the international bridge in El Paso, and he would look at this port of entry and see if he could find any protesters, anybody reacting to these reports. And so he got to the west side of the El Paso Norte Bridge, and he saw an unmarked open gate. And he walked through, and he thought maybe Border Patrol agents, could answer his question, have you seen any protesters? He went underneath a bridge about 100 yards in, and then he was stunned by what he saw. He saw hundreds of migrants being held outdoors in cages behind a chain link fence, huddled underneath a makeshift shelter made from Mylar blankets and whatever scraps of anything that they had to shield themselves from this heat wave that we're having. People out west are freaking out, right? I mean, I'm in Florida. It's like always Africa hot here now. But, it's been over 100 degrees in freaking San Francisco, right? So now we're talking about New Mexico, and it's like burning hot. And he said he was able to speak to some of the detainees, and they said that they have been incarcerated outside, sleeping in the dirt for at least a month. They have not been able to wash or change the clothes they've been detained in for a month. This is a report from the Texas Monthly. It's in the homework section. Go to randyrhodes.com and click on homework. Homework is free. Sign up for it, get it, enjoy it. This article's in there. The U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, they took 8 days to respond to the inquiry from Texas Monthly after this professor provided them with photographs, okay? These immigrants have not been able to shower or bathe or change their clothes. What could go wrong? Fast forward. Breaking news, everybody. 5,200 people in ICE custody are quarantined for exposure to mumps and chicken pox. I should say mumps or chicken pox or both. 5,200 detainees in over 39 detention centers nationwide. Okay, Kevin McLeannon, or I don't, you know who I'm talking about. Okay, he's the acting DHS secretary, right? He said, "We need more funding. It's a crisis unlike anything our country has ever seen." Great. What are we waiting for? Bubonic plague, cholera, perhaps? Holy crap. So finally, the official responded to Texas Monthly and told Texas Monthly they tried to make bathing available to detainees. However, they prioritized the shower for children and vulnerable populations, and clothing is only changed as necessary and as available. Then last night on Twitter, a woman who has a friend who works at CBB because they're getting sick too. Described to her. Now, the problem with reporting that story is we don't know who her friend is. We can't, authenticate the story. There's no sources to point you to. But she says women and children also are sleeping in the dirt outside, not able to bathe. No baby food. No baby food. Scarcity in food. And mothers are trying to lactate. They're trying to lactate so that they can feed their babies.
Connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
It is the assessment of the United States government that the Islamic Republic of Iran is responsible for the attacks that occurred in the Gulf of Oman today. This assessment is based on intelligence, the weapons used, the level of expertise needed to execute the operation, recent similar Iranian attacks on shipping, and the fact that no proxy group operating in the area has the resources and proficiency to act with such a high degree of sophistication.
This is such crap, I can't even tell you. I mean, no one has whatever it is the Iranians took off the side of that ship, except the Iranians. So let's ask for it. Let's see it. Let's say, And, there's so many things that need to be done here, especially with this immigration crisis that Trump created. This man just wants complete and total global chaos. In chaos, you can steal, and in chaos, you could steal elections, and in chaos, you can steal money, and in chaos, you can put people in camps, and the people not in camps won't care about the people in camps because they'll just be glad that they're not in camps. This is craziness. We have the most anti-democratic president in the history of the United States, and we're going to believe anybody around him that there's cause for war when we can't even get the truth about this new epidemic that's affected at least 5,200 people in our custody. 24 immigrants have died in our custody. We have no accountability there. I mean, this is happening on our soil right here, and what? You're going to stand there and say you are now the arbiter of human rights in the world? Please, every assessment of the United States has put the United States not as a democracy to be the beacon of light, not the shining city on the hill to which all other democracies should aspire, but we have been characterized now and ranked as a flawed democracy. Can you imagine that? The United States of America, flawed democracy under Donald Trump. Flawed. It's very sick. It's very sad. Madeleine Albright just wrote a whole book about it. And she's trying to warn people to look for the signs of fascism. And, she's trying to put out a clarion call to everybody saying that, anti-democratic leaders are winning democratic elections, and some of the world's savviest politicians are moving closer to tyranny with each passing year. And, of course, the people she names are Vladimir Putin, who's not a full-blown fascist, but she says he flips through Stalin's copy of the totalitarian playbook and he picks and chooses the parts he likes. She looks at Egypt. She looks at Hungary. She looks at North Korea and the Philippines and Poland and Russia and Turkey and Venezuela and the United States of America. And she provides, the data that we got, with regard to the United States. The Economist's Index is what this is called. It factors in things like due process, individual freedoms, space for a civil society. All of the rankings on those things, we've been reduced. We've been taken from full democracy to flawed democracy. Do you realize that before the 1960s, Pew Research was, polling Americans to find out whether or not they had faith in their own government. And, they would ask most of the time or just about always. 70% of Americans had full faith in their government before this crazy-ass Vietnam War thing, okay? Before this Gulf of Tonkin incident, which was part true, mostly fake, okay? And now, in 2016, they polled again and they asked who has faith in their own government. And here in the United States, less than 20% of Americans have faith in their government. Less than 20%. We're being disconnected from our own values, from our own ideals, the things that united us, the things that inspired us. And it really doesn't take very much imagination to conceive of some instance where the Constitution is just too slow to give us relief, because we see it now, right? You could have a major recession. You could have, we have a corruption scandal, obviously. We have a foreign interference in an election that's being denied by the president and a good chunk of the GOP. So we have that, and people are tribal at this point. Either they believe everything that Trump says, which is demonstrably false, or they believe everything that I say, which is demonstrably true. And there's really no middle ground. Either people understand that the election interference occurred, that Trump welcomed it, he encouraged it, he asked for more help from them, and he got it because he expected to benefit from it, or they don't. But if we had in this country another terror incident, God forbid, if we had an assassination in this country, if we have more natural disasters this summer, or if we have an unexpected war, I believe the Constitution, which is our manual, our operator's manual, is too slow to respond to it. And so this is going to take an enormous amount of people power and education. And this is why I am so disgusted with guys like Bob Mueller, who can't be inconvenienced to educate the American population about what is true about this corruption scandal before we end up in an unexpected war, which is what we're on the brink of. There is no question that the neocons are conning the con man, because Donald Trump is a moron. He is stupid. You know what Donald Trump knows how to do? He knows how to create chaos. He knows how to, put chaos in the Congress, chaos in the Senate. He knows how to, create chaos in the world. He knows how to create chaos in Iran. He knows to starving the Iranian people by pulling out. It was only we pulled out of the Iranian nuclear deal a year ago, and then he started, putting sanctions on our European allies, saying that if they bought oil from Iran, we would sanction them, okay, and starving out the Iranians and creating massive hardship over there. And their leadership is about as reliably honest as our leadership is. That's a sad statement. And so we don't know who to believe. You see what I mean? You see how the truth goes right out the window. So I'm depending on people from the Netherlands to tell me what happened to their ship. I'm depending on Shinzo Abe, who was visiting with the Ayatollah when the Japanese vessel was attacked, to tell me what he thinks happened to his country's cargo. You know what I mean? You got to look elsewhere, because the United States is flawed. It isn't truthful. The leadership of this country is not truthful with the people. There are too many lies. There's too much corruption. All the power is now all the way at the top, only invested in one man who has a racket going. He's running it like a Don. And the GOP are like the little capos. They're like some of them are the soldiers, and some of them are, ahead of their own family. It's very sick, and it's very twisted, and it's very undemocratic, and it's very scary. And we've got people dying on our watch, and we're about to enter into an unexpected war over here, because the neocons realize we have an idiot for a president who only wants to be on Fox and Friends. He only wants ratings. He doesn't care about any other thing. He doesn't have the wherewithal or the acumen to think his way out of a shoebox.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
All right, we recorded our Randi Rhodes After Hours podcast for the Sexy Liberal Radio Network last night with Richard Painter. It is a really good conversation if you're interested in, two different opinions about impeachment versus impeachment inquiry versus inherent contempt versus civil contempt versus criminal contempt. Now, Richard's a lawyer, and he made a fabulous case. And the After Hours podcast, of course, is just a little gift to you. It's free. You can access it wherever you get your podcasts. And I'll tweet it out, the link to it, after the show, because it is an After Hours podcast. All right, so there's that. Please do support our work. Feel free. We always could use your support when it comes to supporting us, because we don't have sponsors. We do this for you, by you. This is truly democracy that we run over here. The other thing that I need to show you is how off in the wild blue yonder this idiot president is. Okay, so here, just for a brief review. Yesterday, and this is what prompted me to reach out to Richard Painter. Yesterday, the media's hair was on fire because Donald Trump gave an interview to George Stephanopoulos, who, it was very weird. The whole thing was weird. It wasn't a sit down. It was George standing behind the president and hanging over his shoulder and sitting on the Resolute desk. And I mean, it was very casual. And then, I don't know how much you pay attention to like the crap he says, but he had a Iowa appearance this week where George Stephanopoulos was in the audience, and he gave him a shout out, and and said he wasn't fake media, he was a good guy, and all. Obviously, it was because he was giving this interview to George, and he liked it. He liked how it went. Well, here's how it went. First of all, I got to say, I'm going to play you what he told George Stephanopoulos that put the media's hair on fire. But the thing that I noticed is, because I do pay attention, because I have to pay attention so you don't have to, so you won't stroke out, right? This is the service we provide. Is I remembered him saying exactly the same thing that he told George about there's nothing wrong with taking information from Russia. He said the same damn thing in 2017, and he said it on the global stage. Okay, because he was doing a joint appearance with Macron from France. Emmanuel. I don't know why he does that weird crap. I mean, that it's like he takes away their title and diminishes them by calling them by their first name, like Nancy. Now he's given her a nickname, Nervous Nancy, right? I mean, if he gave as much thought to this Iranian war plan or as much thought to the border as he gives to giving people nicknames, we'd have something. But we have nothing because he doesn't do that. So I'm going to just play you what he said to Stephanopoulos. And then, the whole world erupted, right? All of a sudden, like it was the first time they ever heard him say it, which is bullcrap. And then he went on Fox and Friends this morning and denied the tape. Said it wasn't, that's not what he said. So here's what he said.
And then the report comes out, and they didn't even say, they hardly even talked about it.
Should he have gone to the FBI when he got that email?
Okay, let's put yourself in a position, you're a congressman. Somebody comes up and says, hey, I have information on your opponent. Do you call the FBI? I don't think.
Coming from
I'll tell you what,
you do.
I've seen a lot of things over my life. I don't think in my whole life I've ever called the FBI. In my whole life.
Yeah, because they ask questions.
You don't call the FBI. You throw somebody out of your office. You do whatever you do.
Al Gore got a stolen briefing book. He called the FBI.
Well, that's different. A stolen briefing book. This isn't a stolen. This is somebody that said, we have information on your opponent.
Stolen information.
Oh, let me call the FBI. Give me a break. Life doesn't work that way.
The FBI director says that's
your life doesn't work that way.
The FBI director is wrong.
Wrong.
Your campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening. If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent.
Why would they have that?
I think I'd want to hear it.
You want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it. If I thought there was something wrong, I'd go maybe to the FBI if I thought there was something wrong. But when somebody comes up with Oppo research, right? They come up with Oppo research. Oh, let's call the FBI. The FBI doesn't have enough agents to take care of it. But you go and talk honestly to congressmen. They all do it. They always have. And that's the way it is. It's called Oppo research.
Okay, so now everybody in the Republican Party, well, not everybody. Kevin McCarthy defended him. Okay, just so you know, the Freedom Crackers defended him. Justin Amash has left the Freedom Crackers, which he co-founded. He co-founded this Freedom Cracker Caucus. And now he's had to leave his own Freedom Cracker Caucus. And they're going to primary him because Justin Amash has, a little shred of shame and pride, right? But the president there is saying that Norway would hack into, the DNC. Norway would hack and steal material and give it to him, and that would be fine. Why should I call the FBI? Well, Al Gore had a stolen briefing book. Well, the president doesn't realize that it's the same because Russia stole material by hacking, which is illegal, right? So you got all this going on. All right. Now, pretty much the entire Republican Party, I mean, everybody from James Lankford of Oklahoma to Scott from South Carolina to Lindsey, North Carolina. I mean, pretty much the whole freaking Senate is up in arms saying, no, you're supposed to call the FBI if somebody's offering you stolen, hacked material. So he decides that he would go on Fox and Friends this morning, and he would say that what he said was not what he said.
Essentially, you say there is nothing wrong, in your estimation, with accepting dirt from Russia or any foreign country. You've taken a lot of heat from the Democrats regarding that since then.
I don't say that. I think it was accurately stated, and I've had a lot of support.
Well, then clarify it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of support. First of all, I don't think anybody would present me with anything bad because they know how much I love this country. Nobody's going to present me with anything bad. Number two, if I was, and of course you have to look at it because if you don't look at it, you're not going to know if it's bad. How are you going to know if it's bad? But of course you'd give it to the FBI or report it to the Attorney General or somebody like that. But of course you do that. You couldn't have that happen with our country, and everybody understands that. And I thought it was made clear. In fact, I actually said at the beginning, I think I said I'd do both. But how are you going to, if you don't hear what it is, you're not going to know what it is. I mean, how can you report something?
How do you know it's bad if you don't listen to it?
So, Mr. President,
no, they say, he would accept it. Well, if I don't listen, you're not going to know. Now, if I thought anything was incorrect or badly stated, I'd report it to the Attorney General, the FBI. I'd report it to law enforcement. Absolutely.
If it was badly stated, what does that mean? He has no problem with foreign meddling, but it has to comply and adhere to the Chicago Manual of Style. I mean, what does that mean? Oh, I'd report it to the Attorney General. This Attorney General, you know what he would do with it? He would do whatever you wanted him to do with it, including eat it. Including crumple it into a ball and eat it. Oh, how do you know it's bad? Because it's stolen. Because it's hacked. How could you? I don't even know why you would need to see it. I mean, if it was hacked and stolen by a foreign government's intelligence services and disseminated through a non-state organization like WikiLeaks, don't you think you ought to call? I mean, it's just so the whole thing was basically Trump telling the nations of the world, hey, want us to turn a blind eye to murdering journalists like Saudi Arabia does? Want the same special treatment we give Russia, who wants Eastern Ukraine? And, in a war, they can take it, right? The U.S. president does dirt for will take dirt and do you favors. I mean, that's what that was. And the whole freaking entire Congress, with very few exceptions, like, Meadows and the Freedom Crackers, all rose up and said, okay, that's a bridge too far. Okay, no. And so now he says he's going on Fox to clarify his comments, which in Trump speak, newspeak, double speak, makes what he said basically incomprehensible. And I could just see the people eating their breakfast this morning going, yeah, that's right. That's what you said. Yeah, that's not what he said. And by the way, the message is already sent. The message, we will turn a blind eye to any wrong. You could go to Istanbul and you could take an American green card holder. You could take a journalist for the Washington Post, and you could bring a bone saw and dismember him on the premises, disappear him, and we'll still side with you and sell you weapons above and outside of Congress's approval of such sale, because I'm the president. I don't have to answer to no stinking Congress. And I know just how to make the price of oil go up, Saudi. We know just how to do that, Russia. These are petrol states, you understand? And yesterday, when this, craziness happened in the Gulf, And Mike Pompeo came out immediately and said, we have evidence, we have proof, we know it was Iran, and, blah, blah, blah. The price per barrel went up 5%. Okay, so ask yourself, who benefits from that? Well, if you're a petrol state like Russia, that's going broke, or you're a petrol state like Saudi, not only do you benefit, but in a war, hey man, all bets are off.
Mary, how does the
fault? We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
One of the reasons that so many Americans are dispirited about the political process is they hear candidates come forward and say, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do that, but nothing happens. And the reason for that is not that the candidates are lying, it is we have to deal with the reality that we don't talk about too much. And that is the power structure of America, the fact that the folks on Wall Street, in the drug companies, in the insurance companies, in the military industrial complex, in the fossil fuel industry, have so much power that no president alone, not me, not anybody else, can do it alone. And that is why I talk about us, not me, in our campaign, why I talk about a political revolution. If you want to transform our energy system and you want to combat climate change, words are not good enough. We have to bring millions of people together to tell the fossil fuel industry they will not continue to destroy this planet. You want Medicare for all? You're going to have to stand up to the insurance companies. You want to cut the cost of prescription drugs in half, which is what I think we should do? You're going to have to stand up to the incredibly wealthy and powerful pharmaceutical industry.
All right, so Bernie Sanders actually had a rally. I don't know what, because when we get people together, Elizabeth Warren is seeing huge crowds. 6,700 people showed up in Oakland. Bernie draws very big crowds. Elizabeth Warren seems to be tied with Joe Biden now in the latest polls. Bernie is number 2. I mean, you've got good choices here, and we have good choices here. And there will be a debate, as you know, will be on NBC. The moderators have been selected. It'll take 2 nights because we have 20 candidates who made the cut to be on that stage, which is a little bizarre. Leave it to the Democrats to figure out a way to leave out the governor of a big, giant red state, Montana, and put in Oprah's spiritual advisor, Marianne Williamson. Just only the Democrats could come up with rules like that. When, of course, the real way to do it would be, since there's 23, let them all debate. I mean, if you're going to do 20, might as well do 23. How many have ever had, people coming over your house and you know that you're going to have like 20 people for Thanksgiving. And then, somebody calls and they go, can I bring a friend? Well, yes, I'm cooking for 20. What's the big damn deal if I have 3 more little birds put a little beak in my stuffing bowl? Who cares at that point? Who gives a damn? But no, the Democrats found a way to leave out 3 candidates, and one of them is the governor of a big, beautiful red state, and he's a Democrat, Bullock. So he's not included. Anyway, that said, I hate airing our dirty laundry. That's why I always put our dirty laundry in the second hour to get rid of the trolls early, right? But here you had Bernie, who was on stage at George Washington University, and he made his case, the best case that you will ever hear, for what he calls democratic socialism. Now, I got to tell you that it is, how words matter, and you have, your Frank Luntz dudes out there that poll words, and they find out that strong and wrong sells, and that, even if you're correct, if you're too nerdy, or you're not, if you're still looking at a piece of paper, you're not speaking, where people could feel you, it doesn't sell. And that's how we ended up with a reality TV star as the president of the United States, presiding over an international incident that could lead us into a freaking world war. Just saying. So anyway, Bernie went to George Washington University and he made a case for democratic socialism, which is not a bad thing. I mean, this is what Norway has. This is what Scandinavia has. This is what the Netherlands have. Okay, this is what every major industrialized nation on this planet has healthcare as a right to its citizens. Basic income for its citizens. Okay, just saying. And he made a good case. Now, the difference between Bernie and Elizabeth Warren is Elizabeth Warren calls it capitalism. It's the same principle, okay? And there are so many things that we already have. I love to point this out to you. Bernie did a good job of doing it too. That are indeed socialist in nature. For instance, reverse socialism. The tax cuts. That is reverse socialism. We all pay into the government, we all pay into the treasury. Everybody has an obligation to pay their taxes, except for this president, right? Everybody pays in, and then how the money is distributed determines whether or not you have a managed economy, socialism, or a democracy. Well, we have socialism because the way that those tax dollars are managed is the people who spend money on purchasing congressmen get it all. And the tax code is the vehicle through which they socialize your taxes. And they give it to corporations through the tax code, or they give it to the wealthiest people in this country through the tax code. So we have socialism. Other forms, more kinder and gentler forms of socialism are Social Security, police. The police in your community are going to protect, the community, whether or not you can pay or not, right? If you're a renter, you don't pay property tax. You still get policing. If you're a renter, you still get to send your kid to school. That's socialism. The military, okay? The military is socialism. Why? Because it doesn't go according to your ability to pay. The military protects the American Constitution, so they think. Right? So there are all kinds of forms of socialism that obviously work in this country. Medicare is socialism, etc. Bernie explained this very, very well, I have to say. Like I said, my vote in a primary situation, don't confuse this with the general election, because in the general election, we're going to be down to Donald Trump and someone else. And I will vote for the someone else, even if that someone else isn't my favorite person in the primary. But in the primary, I will vote for the person who represents the four freedoms that FDR was trying to extend to the American people. Freedom from want, economic freedom, okay? And Bernie did a very, very good job of explaining this.
Back in 1944, in a little remembered State of the Union speech, it was at the end of World War II, and Roosevelt said, look, we have a Bill of Rights in this country and we have a Constitution, I'm paraphrasing him, which says that we have all kinds of great rights. We have freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, all of that is great. But what we do not have is an economic Bill of Rights. We don't guarantee a decent standard of living to all of our people. That's what he said. And he died a year later.
Right.
And in fact, that mantle has never really been picked up. So what I am saying today is that are we truly free? And this is in a sense what Roosevelt was saying. If you're going out and you're working 70 or 80 hours a week because the wages you're working under are starvation wages, are you free if you can't afford to go to the doctor in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and you get sicker or maybe you die because you can't afford health insurance? Are you free if you are a young, bright person but you can't afford to go to college, or you leave school $50,000 or $100,000 in debt?
God.
Are you free if you're sleeping out on the street tonight? Anderson, 500,000 Americans, including many veterans, are sleeping out on the street tonight. So what I am saying, picking up from Roosevelt, that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, now is the time to finally say that economic rights are human rights, that everybody in this country deserves a job at decent pay, that health care is a human right, that a full education is a human right, a clean environment is a human right, affordable housing is a human right, retirement security. We got millions of old people, senior citizens in this country, who literally cannot afford the prescription drugs they desperately need.
And you know he's right. And you know that everybody in this country is saying things like, I don't want impeachment because I want them to do the other job. Well, they are doing the other job. Mitch McConnell makes sure that when the House passes pieces of legislation that matter to us, things like gun safety, freedom to send your kid to school and not have to hold your breath that they come home, Medicare for all, or, fixing the ACA, or whatever it is that they're doing, clean elections, being able to see who's donating to what and to whom, and, at least disclosure and, same-day registration, making voting, easier in this guy. Mitch McConnell just craps all over it. Just lets it die.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
Oh, the dog days of summer are upon us, and that means outdoor fun, right? Spending time with friends and family and ice-cold drinks, and of course, plenty of herky jerky. Herky Jerky has all your snack needs covered, so don't worry. This month they have a deal sweeter than your Southern iced tea. All month of June, Herky Jerky is offering a free pack of 3 1/4 ounce beef jerky and free shipping with the purchase of 2 packs or more for anything in their online store. And you'll be able to choose from 3 delicious beef jerky flavors, original, spicy, or teriyaki. No promo code is needed. You just write which free flavor you want in the comments section, and it will be shipped automatically with your order. Mix and match any combo of their generous bulk packs in your order. The award-winning game sticks, the snappy beef smokies, mild jalapeno and honey, famous bacon jerky, all-natural turkey jerky, venison, elk, buffalo, and of course, the huge 14-ounce packs of beef jerky, including barbecue. It's up to you. Herky Jerky products delivered timely and fresh to your door. Satisfaction's guaranteed, and it's the perfect snack for after a workout, in between meals, or eating on the couch. They appreciate your loyal support of their business, which is now in their 27th year. Order now by calling Jason at 215-479-6280 or visit herkyjerky.com. herkyjerky.com.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day striking steelworkers battled back-to-work forces at Newton Steel in Monroe, Michigan. Steelworkers were on strike against 3 steel companies across 5 states in the push to organize Little Steel. Of the 3, Republic Steel sites had experienced brutal picket line violence, especially in South Chicago. Republic had recently purchased Newton Rolling Mill. Management there was bent on forcing the reopening of the plant. John L. Lewis promised 8,000 to 10,000 workers from Detroit to bolster picket lines. The mayor of Monroe, Daniel Naggs, called upon all able-bodied men with military experience to enlist in a citizens' army to escort scabs back to work. Police and hundreds of deputies set up checkpoints on the outskirts of the city to stop suspected CIO supporters from entering Monroe. Black SWAC organizer Leonidas McDonald from Chicago had already been dragged from his car, beaten, and driven from town on foot by scabs earlier in the day. At the same time, Mayor Naggs, company officials, as well as SWAC and company union organizers met in the state's capital with Governor Murphy to negotiate a settlement. As they met, 200 more special police were sworn in and instructed in the use of sidearms and tear gas. Police deputies and scabs armed with guns, clubs, and tear gas shattered the picket line that evening. Then deputies seized strikers' cars and drove them into the river. 18 strikers were hospitalized. Outraged UAW supporters from Pontiac declared a labor holiday in protest and headed to Monroe. But UAW officials ordered them to turn back in an effort to stem the anti-union violence. The organizing drive had been dealt another serious setback.
Oh! All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
And you know President Trump ultimately will be yelling Venezuela at you as much as possible.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the point. And the other point that I made today is that, in fact, people like Donald Trump are also socialists, except they are corporate socialists. They are prepared and do provide hundreds of billions of dollars every single year in subsidies and tax breaks to large corporations and the wealthy. Anderson, you will remember very well the Wall Street bailout. Now, Wall Street is the epitome of unfettered capitalism. That's what they believe, except when their greed and illegal behavior nearly destroyed the economy, they went begging to the Congress. They were big-time socialists, and they said, we need federal help. Give us $700 billion from the Treasury and trillions of dollars in low-interest loans from the Federal Reserve.
Right.
You got the fossil fuel industry today, which is literally destroying the planet, and they get billions of dollars in subsidies and tax breaks. You have Amazon, owned by the wealthiest person in this country, Jeff Bezos, made $11 billion last year. That's what Amazon made in profits. They didn't pay a nickel in federal income taxes. So, in fact, you got Donald Trump himself, as part of his housing endeavors, received tens and tens of millions of dollars in subsidies and tax breaks. So you do have socialism in this country.
Yeah.
Except, as Martin Luther King reminded us, it's socialism for the very rich and unfettered individualism for the poor.
Exactly. And that is the problem. That is what is wrong with this country. And we have a president who, I don't know if he knows the origin of the inequality in this country and why, people are so angry. He just knows people are angry. So I have no idea if he understands the real problem. But he does know people are angry, and this is what he tapped into. And this is how Donald Trump was able to become the president of the United States. He tapped into this despair, he tapped into this anger, and he tapped into people who can't figure out what has happened in this country, happened from the top, peeing on them, calling it trickle down, and not from the bottom with Honduran housewives who walk across their entire country with their children in tow in 110-degree heat, that they are not responsible for their horrible lot in life, okay? And now, on top of all this corporate socialism that we have lived through since the 1980s, since the Reagan Revolution, and you can see how trickle down did not perform, you can see how using the tax code to transfer wealth from your pocket to the richest people in this country, to their pockets, did not work for you. We're about to fight a war for the oil companies. So we subsidize the most profitable companies on the planet, the oil and gas companies. We subsidize them. We actually subsidize them. And now we're going to fight a war to make their product more valuable. Do you see how this is going off the freaking rails? Now, Trump was just racist enough to get people to believe that their problem was coming from below. That is just false. That is just fake. That is just a ridiculous, diagnosis. And if you start with a bad diagnosis and then they start treating you for that diagnosis, you're not going to get better. You can't get better because it was garbage in with the diagnosis, garbage out with the treatment. It's not what you need. What you need is a complete and total reorganization of the way government works and who it works for. Now, on top of all of this misdiagnosis and tapping into the despair in this country, which is epidemic, people die in this country from despair every single damn day. Every day. You have people dying from alcohol abuse, drug abuse, people dying because they're committing suicide. You've got veterans suffering from PTSD because nobody gives a rat's ass about a vet once we come back. Nobody cares about anybody once, you're done idolizing them. It's so funny because once Trump's gone, nobody will care about him either. And they will all make excuses for him, just like they made excuses for Bush. Everyone will make an excuse for what Donald Trump is doing, for a lawless president who does not respect this country and what it's about, and that is the rule of law.
Senator Sanders, thank you for being with us. I want to talk to you about your speech and this idea of a 21st century economic Bill of Rights, which is what you were really focusing on today. Very quickly, though, just your reaction to what the president told George Stephanopoulos, that he would, in fact, take a look at opposition research or anything offered from a foreign government, even an adversary, and then maybe call the FBI.
Well, Anderson, to tell you the truth, I am not exactly shocked. I think we have a president who neither understands the Constitution of the United States or respects the Constitution, somebody who does not believe in the separation of powers, and somebody who thinks he's above the law. I mean, that is why I believe the House should begin impeachment inquiries on Trump. So, no, I'm not shocked.
What changed your mind on beginning impeachment inquiries? Because it is something of an evolution for you.
No, not really. I mean, I'm not here to tell you that we should impeach Trump. In fact, I don't even know that there are the votes in the House to impeach him, and I doubt very much there are the votes in the Senate to convict him. You need 2/3 of the Senate, 67 votes. But I certainly think that the American people need to understand what this president has done, his contempt for the law. And I think that is the process we undertake when we begin an impeachment inquiry.
Yes, and that is something that I now see as the way forward. I think that we have to actually start the inquiry because, and yes, we're going to have a tough time getting witnesses to testify in public, but you know, after speaking to several lawyers, really smart people from different party affiliations, okay, the After Hours podcast is a conversation with Richard Painter, who obviously was a Republican. He's now an independent because he can't stand what his party has morphed into, the party of Trump. There is no Republican Party. And, you know, I think I remember during the election telling you that Trump destroyed the Republican Party. Before he was even sworn in, anybody who was willing to look at it understood it had become something else. It had become this cult of personality. It had become this fascist organization. It had become almost an organized crime family with Trump at the head of it. And I keep telling you, it's going to end up in New York. It's going to end up as a RICO investigation. Once he leaves office, there's no question that they will prosecute the entire Trump organization as a corrupt organization. That's what RICO is. It's when you prosecute the whole organization, not just the CEO or not just a person who participated in illegal activity within an organization, but the entire organization is corrupt. And so that's what RICO is. It's a racketeering for corrupt organizations. So anyway, we all know he's going to die in jail. I mean, everybody gets that. But what do we do now? Well, right now we have an obligation to educate the American public. We have an obligation. And one of the things that would spur the court into inserting itself quickly, I mean, to quote the president, quickly, right? To get the court to take the defiance of congressional subpoenas seriously, it seems to me at this point, is for the House of Representatives to posture itself as serious, is to put themselves in a position where they are serious. They look serious. They are doing a serious thing. They have started an impeachment inquiry, and they need these witnesses because there's evidence of impeachable offenses. There's collusion, which is not a crime, but it is a behavior that violates the Constitution. And there's emoluments violations. There's the fact that the president is an unindicted co-conspirator. He's individual one in an indictment in a court, okay? So there are impeachable offenses, obviously, that are there. And if we started an impeachment inquiry, obviously it would happen in the Judiciary Committee, but if we started one, the courts would take us much more seriously, and maybe they would expedite the enforcement of these subpoenas to appear. Maybe they would be able to get a Don McGahn, a Mueller, to appear.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. How do you say to insurance companies, how do you say to the medical establishment that is seriously invested in this, how do you say to them, oh, by the way, your way of business changes completely starting tomorrow.
Two different things. So doctors and nurses, large nurses organizations support a Medicare for all. Many doctors support a Medicare for all. Now, the healthcare industry, you're right. If you were the head of United Healthcare and you made $83 million last year in compensation, you know what? You don't support Medicare for all. If you were the head of Aetna and you got a $500 million bonus for merging Aetna with CVS, you're not in favor of Medicare for all. So what we say is that right now, every year, people lose their jobs, they leave their jobs. About 60 million people change insurance policies every single year.
Right.
Medicare right now, for 65 and older, is the most popular health care program. Health insurance industries, they're not very popular. People don't like them by and large. So we're saying we're going to give you stability. You're going to have freedom of choice to the doctor, to the hospital that you want.
So I can see the doctor I want to see.
Anyway, and by the way, right now, in many cases, you can't. If you're not in the network of your insurance program, you may not be able to see that doctor, or you have to pay a whole lot to do that. So we give people freedom of choice, doctors, and we give freedom of choice, hospitals.
Yeah, he's right about that. And everybody who has health insurance through their employer knows two things. Your employer might change your provider next year. Like this year, you may be Aetna, and next year, you may be Humana. And the year after, why? Because those health insurance companies are going to go to your HR person and they're going to sell your company on their policy. So this year, Aetna, next year, United. Different policy, different network, different doctors. That's just a fact. And that's 60 million people who get their insurance. Also, if you get your insurance through your employer, and maybe you'd like to do what I did. You'd like to leave your employer and you'd like to go out on your own and start your own business. You can't. You can't, because you will lose your health insurance because it's through your employer. That is not freedom. That is not freedom.
This is something the American people...
Oh, man.
How do you say...
Oh, no, this is it.
This is something the American people want. It's something long overdue. We've got to do it.
How old a person does it start with?
It's everybody.
Everybody.
I mean, let's be clear. This is not a radical idea. This exists in every other major country on earth. Healthcare is a human right. And it is somewhat absurd and grossly wrong, to my mind, that today we have 34 million people who have no health insurance at all. And then we have another 45 million people who are underinsured with high deductibles and high co-payments. And at the end of all of that, guess what? We are spending twice as much per person on healthcare as do the people of any other major country.
Sick.
So we have a system that is wasteful, expensive, and dysfunctional. Medicare today works very well for seniors. Over a 4-year period, we've got to expand that to all of our people.
We spend, about $3.5 trillion a year on medical care?
That's right. And the estimate is, as healthcare costs go up, that the best estimate that I've seen would be $50 trillion over the next 10 years. $50 trillion. Medicare for all, based on virtually all of the studies that I have seen, will be far less expensive.
So what's the answer to not doing it? Why don't we do it? If it saves us money, you've got 75 million people in a pool of people, 30 million uninsured, no insurance at all, and 45 million who can't afford to use their health insurance because some of you got a $6,000, $10,000 deductible. So it all comes out of your pocket until you reach that $6,000 or $10,000 out of your pocket figure. And then your health insurance kicks in. So it's basically catastrophic care. Then you got 60 million people. You keep adding it. Now we're talking 135 million people, okay, who have health insurance that they can't use or that will change. 60 million. The provider will change next year because that's what your company chose to give you or offer you, right? This makes no sense to anybody. And we're spending trillions of dollars on this system that literally rewards the CEOs of those companies that are keeping their deductibles so high that you can't afford to use their product when you're sick. So why don't we do it? Why don't we do it? Well, we don't do it because the people on the other side of the argument who are protecting the CEOs, who are the donors, who are protecting the pharmaceutical companies, who are the donors, that are charging, I mean, insulin is an old drug. And the price of it is through the freaking roof. What is the justification? Because they can. Because they can. And they're protected by guys like Mitch McConnell. They're protected by the Republican Party or the Trump Party or whatever you want to call that party. And all they'll do is stand on their hind legs like the hyenas they are, and they will scream socialism.
The word that will come from the Republicans is socialism. And just as a word has its own level of toxicity.
Yeah, well, that may or may not be, but as it happens, this is not a socialist program. You know what is a socialist program? It's the Veterans Administration. Mm-hmm. You know what's a socialist program? Your police department. Hello. Your fire department.
Hello.
Those are government-run programs. Every other country, in one variation or another, provides health care to all of their people through a government program. What we do here is maintain the structure, the infrastructure of healthcare in America.
Do you see this having an economic benefit that reaches beyond the medical industry?
Yeah, I'll tell you where it does. There are millions of people in this country today who are staying on their jobs, even though they dislike their jobs, even though they want to do something different. They are staying on their jobs because they have decent healthcare. I think when you tell every person in this country, you can do whatever you want to do economically. You want to start a business, you want to move to a different job, and you're going to have quality health care. I think that opens up extraordinary opportunities for economic growth in this country. You unleash a lot of folks who are now staying on jobs that they really would prefer not to stay on. That's not an issue we talk about a lot.
If I want to, can I opt out?
No.
Everybody gets it.
Yeah, this is you know, it's like Social Security. It is like Medicare right now. It's just an expansion of Medicare.
So the reason why we don't have decent health care in this country for each and every citizen of this country, the reason why we don't have the ability to go see a doctor and walk out without a bill, the ability to go get a prescription filled and walk out without having a bill, or go to a hospital and not have to stop by the sales office, you know, or the billing office on your way out the door after you've been hospitalized and you're at your lowest possible point, right, is because of a word. A word. A word that the hyenas get on their hind legs and scream and yell and scream and yell, when that word is the same word that anybody with any brain would use to describe policing or firefighters or the military. All government run. They all get government paychecks. Okay? You're in the military, you even surrender your civil rights, but you're going to get a government paycheck. You're going to wear government clothes. You're going to live in government housing. I mean, it's crazy, all because of a word. A word. How stupid is this country that a word could actually be so powerful that you would vote against your children's best interests, that you would vote against your pregnant wife's best interest, that you would vote so that she couldn't deliver a baby, a healthy baby, or a baby that is in need of neonatal care, and that you would survive all that and get to leave the hospital maybe 3 months later with a nice new baby brought to 7 pounds, 10 ounces, and not have to stop by a sales office, not have to stop by the billing department. Because of a word, you would vote that out of your life. I mean, this is how fragile the American psyche is. And I want everybody to understand that. And it's really, it's getting to the point where I think Bernie Sanders is not viable because of that word. That word. So go Warren.
is The Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
The Democrat Party has never been angrier. They're so angry. Did you ever see people so angry? For what? For what? These are angry people. Every day, the Democrat Party is becoming more and more unhinged and more extreme. They're going crazy. Do you love it? I sort of love it, right?
Back now with Senator Sanders. You talked today in your speech about compassion, justice, and love as sort of the hallmarks of how you see leadership and your leadership. You know how the president's going to paint your talk of democratic socialism. Besides, Venezuela, do enough Americans know what you mean by that and what that actually looks like?
Well, Anderson, that's why I'm on your show tonight.
Well, that's why I'm asking you.
Look, what we have to understand, for example, the United States is the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a right. In many countries in Europe, Germany for one, you go to college and the cost of college is zero. I think in Finland they actually pay you to go to college. In most countries around the world, the level of income and wealth inequality, which in the United States today is worse than at any time since the 1920s, with 3 families owning more wealth than the bottom half of America, that level of income and wealth inequality is much less severe than it is right here in the United States.
But as you know, the taxes in many of those countries are much higher than they are, the individual personal taxes much higher than they are in the United States.
But I suspect that a lot of people in this country would be delighted to pay more in taxes if they had comprehensive health care as a human right. I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. You go to the doctor anytime you want. You don't take out your wallet. You have heart surgery, you have a heart transplant, you come out of the hospital, it costs you nothing. Your kids in many countries around the world can go to public colleges and universities tuition free. Wages in many cases are higher. So there is a trade-off, but at the end of the day, I think that most people will believe they're going to be better off when their kids have educational opportunities without out-of-pocket expenses, when they have health care as a human right, when they have affordable housing, when they have decent retirement security. I think most Americans will understand that that is a good deal.
And those countries he just named are happier than we are. Happier. They are not, at each other's throats. They are not, unhappy people. They are not dying of deaths of despair. And so if you add up all the premiums that you pay for health insurance that you can't use, right? And your tax bill would go up, let's say, by that amount. But now you have health care that you can use, and your kids can go to a public college tuition free, or you're a college student and you can graduate without $100,000 worth of debt hanging over your head, and you haven't even bought a house. I mean, it's just so ridiculous that you would have $100,000 worth of debt, and all you did was the right thing, educate yourself. You didn't even buy a house that appreciates. You know what I'm saying? It's so stupid. It's such a dumb deal. And you got people that stand on stages and just, you want to know why people are angry? This is why people are angry. People are angry because of wealth and income inequality. They are angry because the tax breaks go to the very top. They are angry because they know that the district they live in is gerrymandered, or they know that their votes don't count, or they know that their tax money is, being redistributed to Amazon that doesn't pay any taxes on $11 billion worth of profits. People are angry, but the Republican Party is better at telling people to look down to blame. And we are telling people, look up. It's coming from the top. They are protecting all of that wealth. They are buying our Congress. They are buying our senators. They are buying our president. And now, not only are we up against corporate America, but we're up against international corporations and foreign adversaries who are giving things, stolen, hacked materials to a preferred candidate in a presidential election. The whole system is broken. That's why we are a flawed democracy. That's why people have no faith in government. It's because you've got a party that has made the donor class and the foreign adversaries of the world king. And when we try to legislate against it, which the House has done, go look at H.R. 1. It's an amazing bill that looks to right this wrong about gerrymandering. And you know, this week we had this unbelievable story about how the Supreme Court has heard a case with regard to the North Carolina gerrymander, right? The map that they found illegal. And then they drew a new map. And they were listening to a case about the citizenship question on the census, which would destroy, again, our ability to be counted properly and have our districts drawn legitimately. Turns out the same guy that's drawing the illegal gerrymandered maps, Thomas Hofeller, is the same guy that thought up a way to gerrymander maps based on adding a citizenship question to the census, because then he would only count, to draw a district, people 18 and over who were citizens only. And so you would not be counting everybody in the district who would need money for policing, who would need money to go to the hospital, right? The hospitals would need, right? And they would get shortchanged, because if you're not a citizen but you live here with a green card, if you're not a citizen but you live here with a visa, if you're not a citizen but you are on a work visa, whatever your situation is, you need to be counted. Why? Because you're going to use the roads, you're going to use the hospital, you're going to use the schools. But he dreamt up this crazy ass idea where he could gerrymander the maps and create an environment where they're not counted. That man died, and his daughter found out about his death on the internet because they were estranged. She asked her mother, could she go through her father's belongings last May, this past month. She found all these thumb drives and backups for his hard drives. And the Supreme Court heard a case about the citizenship question without seeing the evidence that Thomas Hofeller left after his death in a baggie for his daughter to find. And they're going to decide this case in June, this month, without ever seeing that evidence. See, this is how the corruption starts. And then everyone's going to go vote, and they're going to say, I don't understand. There's so many Democrats in my district, and yet a Republican won. How is that possible? Gerrymandering. See, these are the basic, unsexy, boring things that affect how your vote is counted, whether or not you're in a district where, it's one man, one vote. Sorry to break it to you, but really it's these are the problems that Democrats know, and they legislate around, and they try to fix with bills like H.R. 1, and then you got the Senate over there where you got the Grim Reaper, the admitted Grim Reaper. I didn't put a number. Oh, yes, I did. Number 5.
Well, Senator McConnell, your response to these new attacks from Nancy Pelosi, complete, Senator, with props and poster boards at McConnell's graveyard.
She's got it right. She's got it absolutely right. For the first time in my memory, I agree with Nancy Pelosi. I am indeed the Grim Reaper when it comes to the socialist agenda that they've been ginning up over in the House with overwhelming Democratic support and sending it over to America, things that would turn us into a country we've never been.
Oh my
They're
God.
on the way to doing some additional things, in addition to the ones they've already done, the Green New Deal, Medicare for All. And by the way, you may have mentioned this on your show, but they had planned to make the District of Columbia state. They'd give them 2 new Democratic senators. Puerto Rico state would give them 2 more new Democratic senators. And as a former Supreme Court clerk yourself, you've surely noticed that they plan to expand the Supreme Court. So this is full bore socialism on the march in the House. And yeah, as long as I'm the majority leader of the Senate, none of that stuff is going anywhere.
Social. He uses the word, right? One man, one vote to him is socialism. Healthcare that you already pay for, but instead of paying it to a for-profit company, you would pay it to the government and they would give you Medicare and it would be cheaper and usable. That's socialism. But, how does he feel about the military? How does he feel about Social Security? How does he feel about, policing? How does he feel about public libraries? How does he feel about public school? Yeah, you see, it's all a word. And it talks people out of their own best interest.